What's up, college football addicts? Is the NCAA going to screw up this whole Michigan thing? Let's talk about it.
This video is brought to you by BetUS Sportsbook and Casino.
All right, so what is happening with Michigan? Well, Dan Murphy of ESPN reported that Michigan's Sharon Moore could be facing NCAA penalties related to this Connor Stalions case. According to a draft of the NCAA's notice of allegations, it seems like this was leaked by the NCAA, not the final notice of allegations or penalties, but it does seem like we've got some early insight on what's going on. The draft, which could be subject to change, states that Moore could face a show cause penalty, which is virtually meaningless, and possibly a suspension for allegedly deleting a thread of 52 texts with former Michigan staffer Connor Stalions in October of 23. Now, Harbaugh, Partridge, Robinson, and Stalions all accused of level 1 violations. It's reported that Stalions scouted 13 future Michigan opponents on at least 58 different occasions. The NCAA, here's the real silver bullet, gathered evidence that shows that Stalions was on the sideline at Michigan State's season opening game against, who was it? Central Michigan, which to that we have to just say, duh. Everyone saw that happen. The fact that the NCAA felt like they needed to announce this like it was breaking news is obviously funny. How about this tweet from Graham Coffey, which maybe provides a little bit of perspective? Sorry, and bear with me, Michigan fans. I'm just reading his words. Harbaugh was 49-26 at Michigan, on the verge of getting fired. He saw drastic times, so he took drastic measures. He was 40-3 after Stalions. Now, a lot of those wins are tainted forever, if not all of them. He goes on to say, guys, Harbaugh refused to turn over phone records, ditto for Stalions. He stored all of them on the stolen sign data in the offices and took a hard drive out the day it came out. He handed a player a call sheet for a future opponent the same day, which means that even after the scandal broke, wins are tainted. The full extent will likely never be known, but there's a decent evidence that they tried to fix the sport and shuffle the deck to favor them. If you think that this dude got to 58 games without someone asking why he wasn't at work or what he was doing, then you are delusional. Now, I don't know what the right answer is for Michigan. I do know that the NCAA will impose some sort of penalty. Michigan fans are going to think that it's too much, and we will agree. Fans of everyone else, we're going to think that it's not enough. But what just happened with Kentucky? Let's talk about the insane double standard that we're likely about to see. And if the NCAA doesn't impose a double standard here, I'll get back on here and say the NCAA finally did something right. Now, let's talk about Kentucky, but first, before we do that, I do want to tell you about our video sponsor today, BetUS. Now, BetUS is the book that I'm writing with this season. They have an insane deal going on right now. It's a 125% bonus on your first 3 deposits up to $2,000. So if you deposit $100 and you get 125% back, you could deposit up to $1,900 or more over 2 other deposits, and you still get that same 125% deposit bonus match. You can bet everything on their site, from team totals to individual games, conference championships, and who's going to ultimately hold up a hopefully non-stolen or non-cheated college football playoff championship trophy. It's all on their website for you, so hit that link in my description or on the pinned comment, and let's make some money. Now, at Kentucky, players were paid for fake jobs, in which they essentially had titles, had jobs, but didn't do any work. This was pre-NIL, but just barely pre-NIL. 10 wins from the 2020 season were taken away. Now, the NCAA has no power over really anything anymore after Tennessee challenged them and said, we will not let you run amok of NC or NIL allegations, and we're not going to do it. And so they were shut down on that. And so what is the NCAA trying to enforce what little power they have left? And they took it out on Kentucky. Kentucky not being a blue blood, no offense to any Kentucky fans, but Kentucky not being a blue blood, a team they felt like they could push around, a team they felt they could push over something relatively minor. And so they did. What about what happened with Florida State right before the NCAA wasn't allowed to assess NIL penalties? Remember the NCAA went after Florida State for a coach driving a player to an NIL meeting, not negotiating with him, not paying him, not sliding him cash, not handing him a McDonald's bag, but giving him a ride to an NIL meeting. A meeting where the NIL company, I've been told, just essentially laid out likely what he would get paid if he was to make a decision for Florida State. I don't believe they paid him any money early. There were no allegations of cash swapping hands. It was just a pretty standard NIL meeting. Hey, this is what we kind of offer at FSU. But the coach got a 3-game suspension, and the team got a lack of scholarships or a scholarship reduction based on a ride that was given. Instead of calling him an Uber, he drove his own personal car, and that was a problem. So you tell me what's worse. Now, I'm biased, being an FSU guy. There's no doubt about it. But it seems like driving a guy to an NIL meeting is probably the lowest of those 3 violations, and it was. It was not a level 1 by any means. I also think that the guys receiving money for a fake job at Kentucky right before NIL was a thing is a pretty interesting way for an entire team to lose an entire season's worth of wins. I'm not saying that it wasn't against the rules. I'm not saying that rules weren't broken, but it's certainly not actively cheating the actual game. Guys get paid, or people get paid all the time for work they're not actually doing. Just look at most government jobs. But it isn't actively cheating the game. Is that not worse than all of that? Like, I'm not just trying to go in on Michigan here, but how is receiving money, something that the NCAA does absolutely hate, that players do get paid now, how is that, but not impacting the actual game, potentially worse? I think we'd all be shocked right now if Michigan was to have their title suspended or any of their wins vacated from the last 3 years. I don't really see how kids getting paid is somehow worse than cheating the actual game. Here's what I am sure of. The NCAA will screw this up. I joked earlier about the NCAA going too hard if you're a Michigan fan and not hard enough if you're a fan of anyone else. And I don't really know if Michigan should actually have their championship stripped. Personally, I think that vacating wins is the dumbest thing that the NCAA does. It actually is meaningless. And that's why teams like Kentucky agree to it. It means nothing. We were at those games. We watched those games happen. We saw them on TV. We remember the 10-win season. We get it. You think Florida State fans don't remember the 2007 season where they beat Alabama in Nick Saban's opening year? Bobby Bowden being one of a handful of coaches, the only coach to have a win against Nick Saban on a neutral site. You think that they care that the NCAA says that game doesn't happen? They don't care. They were in Jacksonville. They were there when it took place. And though I think vacating wins is stupid, I think that vacating wins for Kentucky players getting paid money, which, again, the NCAA hates the fact that they're not getting all of the money and that players are getting paid, but then not vacating wins for a team or a program that actively cheated the system and the actual game, I think that's a disgrace. I think vacating wins is dumb. I can say that on one hand and say that if you're going to be that harsh in Kentucky, you got to be that harsh on Michigan too. So what should happen to Michigan? Honestly, I think they should be fined a real amount, not a small, petty, just insignificant amount, which will probably happen. Moore and everyone else involved should be suspended for at least a year. And they should lose a dramatic amount of scholarships. Not 5 scholarships, not 10, but a dramatic amount of scholarships. But the NCAA doesn't make any sense. They hate their athletes getting paid more than they hate penalizing actual cheating. So Michigan fans can probably rest easy. I doubt that anything too harsh is going to come your way. The NCAA just doesn't have a backbone here. And they feel like they can push around certain programs, and certain programs like Michigan or Tennessee or others are going to fight back. Florida State trying to fight back right now because essentially after they were ruled against, the NCAA can't even impose NIL violations anymore. So let's talk about this. What are your thoughts? Again, this is not me being anti-Michigan. I love the fact that you beat Ohio State the last. I love it. I'm not an anti-Michigan guy, but I just don't understand how players getting paid is worthy of an entire team losing their entire season's worth of wins and someone cheating the actual system. What Michigan did, cheating the actual game, is not worth worse than that. Maybe I'm off here. I'd love to hear your thoughts down in the comments. Again, appreciate BetUS for their support and sponsoring this video. Again, hit the description so you don't miss out on any of the games this year and you can make some money with us. And I appreciate you guys, as always, for tuning in to College Football Addiction.